All right, should be good.
Yeah. Carolyn, could you do a test just to make sure it's coming through the YouTube stream, please? Did that show up, Betsy?
I will let you know.
Did that show up, Betsy?
All right. Okay, it's good.
Good. All right.
Looks
wow, that
good.
took a long time to get through.
We're all set.
Thanks, Carolyn. Thanks, Betsy. Betsy, do you want to turn me back to host?
Thank you for the reminder. Okay. Usually Joyce reminds me of that, and just make me a co-host.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There we go.
Awesome.
Okay, and the recording is live now. Hi, Margie.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. We'll get started in just a minute.
Okay.
And hi, Pam.
Hi.
Okay, so we've got a quorum, so I'll go ahead and start the housekeeping announcements. Just a reminder, we are live on YouTube and the meeting is being recorded. Just a sec. Okay, so due to the active, so this is the Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders Commission Data and Research Workgroup, our meeting for the March quarter. Due to the active state of emergency, this is an electronic meeting pursuant to item 4-0.01 of the 2020 Appropriation Act. Meeting notice has been provided. The meeting is being recorded and minutes are being taken. All votes will be conducted by a roll call of voting members. Excuse me. Meeting materials are posted under the Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders Commission's Workgroup Meeting tab on the vda.virginia.gov/dementia.htm website. Members of the public are able to live stream this meeting via the DARS YouTube page. Please be advised that if the live stream is interrupted, we will need to pause the meeting until it is restored. Public comment will be accepted by email or phone to my attention. Public comments that were received by Friday, February 26th, will be read or, if lengthy, summarized during the meeting when we reach that agenda item. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip the Zoom settings unless anybody would like me to go over them. No, I think we're all good. Okay. And all right. Just remember that if you have your video enabled, be aware that the system may capture your image and video in the public streaming and recording. And please only use the chat feature if you have a technical issue or other issue not related to the business of this meeting. Chat comments are not captured in the live stream or the recording, so are not available to members of the public. If you'd like to view the real-time captioning of today's meeting, please click on the CC button on your menu bar in Zoom and select Show Subtitles. The YouTube streaming will automatically include the captioning. For all votes, as it's an electronic meeting, we will do a roll call and you'll be asked to indicate your support, saying aye or yes, your opposition saying nay or no, or you may abstain. I'd like to thank the DARS video conferencing team and the DARS communication team for making this electronic meeting possible. So I'll do a roll call of members to confirm attendance in no particular order. Pam Teester.
Here. Sorry, couldn't locate you.
Carol Manning.
Present.
Lana Sargent.
Present.
Fonda Neal. She said she wouldn't be able to be here. Tony Kugel. Not here. Laura Bowser.
Present.
Lisa Sullivan.
Present.
Lisa Sargent. 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 Lisa and Margie Shaver.
Present.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just pull up the agenda and I'll turn it over to you, Lana. There we go. Can everybody see the agenda okay? Good, all right. Over to you, Lana.
All right. Welcome to March, everyone. We made it through another month. We do a round of just welcomes and introductions for our group. I'll just start and then we'll take a look at adopting our last agenda, and then we have some things to get to today, which I think is exciting. I'm Lana Sargent. I'm the chair of this working group as well as vice chair on the commission. I got into the commission primarily because of my desire to improve the life and well-being of individuals with dementia. And I do that through mostly my research, but also my teaching of the next generation. Also motivated by individuals in my own family who've been afflicted by dementia. I'd like to go ahead and we'll go down the list. Margie?
Margie Shaver. I have family members that had Alzheimer's. I've served on the board of the Central and Western Virginia chapter. I've been an advocate. I do the walk, all things Alzheimer's. It's been a passion for, gosh, probably about 20 years now. So, and this is the next step.
All right, Pam, you're next. I'm just going down the list.
I have to unmute. Okay. So I'm Pam Teaster. I'm a professor and the director of the Center for Gerontology at Virginia Tech. I've done a lot of work on surrogate decision-making for persons with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, as well as bioethical questions that occur related to them.
Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Bowser. I'm chair of the commission. I've been on the commission now for, I guess, about 6 years. I've also done volunteer work and served on the board for the Central Alzheimer's chapter. And what brings me and sort of my passion, the reason I'm doing all this is my mother passed away from early onset Alzheimer's at 58 and doesn't run in my family, but the impact was enormously felt. So.
Carol?
I'm Carol Manning. I'm at the University of Virginia. I'm the director of the Memory Disorders Clinic here. I served as chair of the Central and Western Virginia Alzheimer's Association chapter some time ago, and have had family members with dementia, and passionately care about both people with dementia, but also providing help and care for unpaid caregivers.
Do you have anybody else? Joyce or Betsy?
No, they're all,
That's
that's all
it?
our communication.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got everyone. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So the next item is to adopt the agenda.
Yeah, so we'll need to do a roll call for that.
Okay.
You want to ask for a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'd like to put forth a motion to adopt the agenda.
I approve.
Thank you.
I approve. Pam?
Okay, so Pam says yes, Laura said yes, Carol?
Says yes.
Lana,
Yes.
and Margie.
Yes.
Okay, the agenda is adopted.
Okay, we'd like to also open it up for any public comment at this time, or any public
Yeah,
comment.
so
at
none
any
was
time.
received. None was
Okay.
received.
Okay, great. So the first item of business really is to approve the minutes from October 22nd. Get everybody get an opportunity to just take a look at the minutes from our last meeting and our discussion. Have any amendments or comments? Okay. Right, I'd like to put a movement forward to adopt or to approve the minutes.
Okay, you can just unilaterally adopt them.
Are we
Lana.
okay? Okay, we're gonna adopt the minutes
No amendments.
if there aren't any
Okay,
amendments. Great. Okay, so last time we left off, let me pull up here, on our mission to, as the work group, think about ways to provide opportunities for researchers and consumers to potentially connect with research, especially populations that otherwise may have not had an opportunity to be a part of innovative work or even know that research is out there. So we have been exploring opportunities for researchers, consumers, and potentially providers to network and market research opportunities across the Commonwealth. And we've been talking about a platform which allows researchers across the Commonwealth to post work that's going up. We've talked about all kinds of different types of platforms that could be done. We've more recently been talking about these flash presentations and some mechanism that allows us to not only get information out there and make connections, but also allows caregivers and individuals who participated in research to be on this platform too, to describe their experience with the process. And there was, before we get into the mock flash presentations that Pamela and I were tasked with doing at the last work group meeting we have, I had shared with George that that the NIA had come out with a completely redesign of their Alzheimer's website. And I didn't know if anybody had seen that because it has a lot of really nice components in it this group has been talking about. George, I don't know if we can share the link necessarily, or if we just want to show. I don't know if we can share it in the chat. You're on mute.
we could share the website. So hang on just a second.
I thought it would be good before we got to our presentations to think about how they design. If you look at how they've designed their website, has anybody seen it yet? The new one? No? Okay, this is great. It has a lot of the buckets that we were talking about, information, finding clinical trials, living with dementia. I haven't looked deep enough to see if they've actually put videos up here or not. But it's nicely done, completely redesigned. So in looking at this, I was, of course, we want to think about resources that are already out there and how we can link to those resources for people, right? And how we can make them specific to our Commonwealth. So, we might not be able to spend a lot of time with this, but I wanted to present it to the group to take a look at and even maybe consider looking at it within the context of what we are hoping to do here or trying to do here. And how this might connect, or even how we can make what we're doing more specific to the Commonwealth, but link out to the broader resources. So I don't know if anybody had seen the older site, but it's nice, specifically the area where they talk about sort of how they're linking. You can see how they search. And then if you go in there, it actually, like many of the members of the work group had mentioned before, there's information here about, what are clinical research studies. We talked about, a flash presentation of someone who's been a participant of research in the past. It's done nicely. Margie, I think it touches on a lot of things that you had spoken about as last work group about, sort of presentation and how it's organized.
Yeah, it looks really clean, for lack of a better word, and easy to maneuver around.
So, of course, linking out to something like this, as well as maybe trying to model something similar that's more specific to the Commonwealth, I think is interesting. Good. I have some really nice videos in here that I've seen, volunteer stories, which is a little, with what we've been talking about as a group, something similar to this. So I don't know if anybody had any thoughts about it. Certainly, maybe we could have a bigger discussion at the next work group too, once people have gotten an opportunity to look at the update.
At first glance, this looks really good, and we really don't have to reinvent the wheel here. If we could look at this and pull what we would like to do in the same way and make it more local and customized to Virginia, I think that's a great idea.
That was my thought when I looked at it too. How do we not reinvent the wheel? How do we use the pieces to make it more specific to the Commonwealth, right? And we still have a discussion around kind of what data could we collect from this, and what do we want to track on this. But yes, the framework itself could be something that we could model, as well as, of course, link out to as a resource.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it would be a really good model for what we're trying to do. I particularly like the things like the FAQs around research and who can participate and why to participate. So it explains a lot of the issues that we were talking about, or have been talking about, over the past 9 months.
Right. So we might be able to do is, really just take the pieces that are specific to the Commonwealth, maybe specific, research trials that are going on, but the general information about facts and everything else could be linked out, so that we don't necessarily have to keep it up to date, or, we know this resource is going to be, has been well vetted and organized. So it might be worth just thinking about kind of what pieces do we think we want to pull out as we're looking at this.
Yeah.
Maybe we could all look at this later, go through the site, and maybe make a list of things that we really like or don't like, or things that would be good for our site, and maybe just compile a list for the next meeting, or in between, or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe which pieces we could turn, or need to be more specific to Virginia, right? Need to be more specific to the Commonwealth of Virginia, versus ones that we can just link out. I like that idea. How does everyone feel about that? Just taking some time, take a look at this and see. It might help us narrow down to what are the specific areas that we feel need to be unique to Virginia, that don't necessarily have to be replicated.
Makes sense.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's just good timing. It just came out, I think, about a week ago. So I just got it in my email. So it was, like I said, one of my first thoughts was, well, would fit us really well, but maybe we could make something a little bit more narrow and then links out to their site. So, okay, well, it sounds like a good action plan for our next meetings, we'll take a look at this and see if we can make a list together of what specific areas need to be more personalized to the Commonwealth that we could move forward with. All right.
Should we do that now and get our list to you so that by the time we have the next meeting, or just wait until the next meeting and everybody present their list at that time, or which would be better?
Oh, I think I like the idea if you want to email it to George and I, and we can compile it. That might be, I think, a little bit easier to do.
Yeah, I think so too.
And give us a due date.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, this afternoon.
George is really good about that.
I just go ahead and give us a due date. We'll put it on the calendar and get her done.
I work well with due dates too. Give me a date and then I'll make it happen.
It'll never happen if I don't have a date.
Is March 19th too soon?
March 19th. That works for me.
Because I was thinking of the next meeting would probably be mid-April-ish.
We're sending this to George? Or who are we sending it to?
Yes, please send it to me, and I'll compile it.
Okay.
Great. So Pam and I met in between our last meeting, and we talked about putting an example together of a flash presentation of what it might look like if we did and provided a sort of video presentation from both researchers, who want to present their work in a way that allows maybe more of a personalized view of it rather than a link out to a study description, right? So we've been coming up with these ideas of these flash presentations. So we were the guinea pigs and tried it out. We thought it would be nice to do it in two different methods. So Pam had already done it in a PowerPoint method, and so I did it as a flyer, where it was just a straight flyer, and we tried to present off of that these key topics and keep it short. So we're going to present, and it doesn't necessarily need to be one way or the other. We're just presenting it for discussion as a could this work? Would this work? Would this provide something that's not already out there to connect people in a unique way, versus them having to go scroll through like a list of 100 studies or use search terms that they may not know, things like that. We've been talking about kind of a unique way of presenting work that really connects with people. So Pam, I don't know if you have anything you want to say ahead of time before we present our work.
Oh, let's see. No, not really, but just be gentle. Remember, it was it's not Golden Globe quality.
It's true. I almost got to my third recording. I was like, I think it'll be okay. I won't have to do it
my
third
old
time.
one, so I redid it, and I thought, not so hot. But and then I guess before, so you just know I'm anxious. Before you look at it, remember it was a class assignment. So I'm like, I'm back in school, so it was my school assignment on a paper I'm doing. I've apologized enough. Okay.
So are you saying we should judge you harshly? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Grading.
I'm teasing.
Grading.
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
You can judge me harshly on other things.
I wouldn't judge you harshly on anything.
Kind. Somebody does.
We also use like two different methods of recording too, which might have to happen. I used something, Kaltura, which is something that we already have here, software that may not be available to everyone.
Right. And I went solo rode on the second one. Truthfully, I hate VoiceThread. I never get that right.
Right.
So that's why I couldn't find it again. And so I just recorded it on the PowerPoint. So, on the feature on record, I did it that way. It's much farther back in the evolution chain.
Do you have them, George?
Yep. So I'll start with Pam's because I think that's going to be
Good.
the easiest to share.
This will be fun. Okay.
Yeah. All right, maybe I'm going to start with Lana's. Can you see that?
There we go.
Okay.
I think you can enlarge it if not.
It's not moving yet. I'm just, okay.
Hello, my name is Dr. Sargent.
Hello, my name is Dr. Sargent. I'd like to talk to you about a study we're conducting now in our translational approaches for personalized health. We are exploring ways to reduce the effects of uncontrolled high blood pressure on cognitive impairment. So if you have high blood pressure and you're concerned about your memory, this would be a good study for you. High blood pressure is not only a leading risk factor for heart disease, but it can also be a significant risk factor for memory decline. Now, normally, when we're treating high blood pressure, it's based off of a blood pressure measurement measured at your doctor's office. This is a one-time reading and only gives a snapshot of your blood pressure. What's unfortunate about this is that the best blood pressure is measured outside of the doctor's office, and it tends to be more useful in knowing what your risk factors are. So the way that we measure blood pressure outside of the office is done with a 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitor, as you can see here in the picture. It uses a small monitor that looks like a large cell phone, and it's attached to a normal blood pressure cuff worn on the arm. And you wear that for 24 hours. And what this does is it allows us to check your blood pressure while you're doing your daily activities, your normal daily activities, and even while you sleep, to see if your blood pressure is elevated at other times of the day that we're not catching. So in the future, this can help us determine which medications to use for treating high blood pressure and when it's best for you to take your medicines, possibly during the day or at night, to manage your blood pressure better. Now, identification of these unique patterns in your blood pressure can help us develop a personalized way to manage your blood pressure and also reduce the uncontrolled high blood pressure on effects on memory impairment. Now, in order to qualify, you can see here on the right-hand side, in order to qualify, you have to be diagnosed with high blood pressure, be taking at least one medication for your blood pressure, be at least 60 years of age or older, English speaking, and what you'll have to do is to complete some questions about your medical history, spend a visit with us for about an hour. We'll show you how to use the monitor, how to set it up, and provide us with a saliva sample so we can check your risk factors, genetic risk factors for high blood pressure. And you'll take the blood pressure monitor home, wear it for 24 hours, and then come back within a day or two to return the monitor. At that time, we will provide you with an average reading of your blood pressure and the pattern of your blood pressure so you can see and share it with your provider. We do provide gift cards for your time and effort. And if you're interested in learning more about this study, you can find my name and our study number listed on this form, as well as also on our website.
So are you looking, I thought that was really good. But I was having feedback. I heard you double did anyone else have that?
Yeah, I had the double too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I apologize for that. I'm not sure why that happened.
It was like the audio started, then it started again.
Right.
Yeah.
But you were, when I paid attention to just one of you, you were great. So,
Yeah.
very clear, very calm.
My kids would love that if there were two of me. I would love it if there were two of me.
All right, let me pull up Pam's.
I found the flyer form really easy to do. You know, it was right there. It was just easy to present the work off of it and that be it. And most people have to have a flyer for their research, so.
And the video didn't change, right?
No.
there was one time I wasn't sure because I was getting distracted by the other audio.
Yeah, no, it didn't change, just
Okay,
one
that's
screen.
fine. I'm just making sure I didn't miss something.
Can everybody see that? Okay, Pam's slide.
Hi, this is Pam Teester, and I'm doing a flash presentation for you related to the class that I am taking. It's about 5 minutes, and I wanted you to get a feel for what that would look like if we do it later for the Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders Commission. But this is really what I had to do just a little bit ago, but I couldn't find the voice thread to transfer to you, so I'm recording it now. It'll be 3 slides, and this was the first one. So you can see this was within the parameters of the research I was doing. Anyway, it's Pam Teester from Virginia Tech doing a flash presentation on my capstone project, which is implementation of physician orders for scope of treatment or post in rural Southwest Virginia. Okay, and off we go. This is the meat of my whole presentation that was for class. We only had, like I said, 5 minutes to do this, so I'm going to try to take you through this project as quickly as I can. What you need to understand is that changes in the 70s that occurred in medicine created a momentum to try to do advanced care planning. And so when some of the mechanisms proved, such as the advance directive or the living will, proved to be somewhat unworkable and that a lot of people didn't execute them, other options were put in place. So POST, or physician orders for life-sustaining treatment, was developed in Oregon in the early 1990s and then spread across the United States. And as of 2021, that exists in some form in all states across the country. But where it doesn't really occur is in Southwest Virginia, and that seems to me to be quite an inequity for folks. So there is a Virginia Post Collaborative. You may know that or may not. And anyway, I'm working with them to do this project, which is to try to figure out ways to implement post in rural Virginia, but mostly in all of Virginia, with a focus on rural Virginia. Of course, that's where I live. So I have as a good student, I have 2 theoretical frameworks that I'm using for this particular project. One is from John Kingdon, who I've known a lot in the work that I do and liked a lot too. And his work concerned policy processes, and a lot of those had to do with agenda setting and in trying to find what we would call a policy problem, which is the issue of uptake of post. Policies, the way that we create laws or regulations or guidelines or standards of practice in this case, and politics streams, i.e. the end-of-life movement, to try to come up with solutions. And so that is one of the things that I am using as a way to help work on policy, and then building on Kingdon's model is B.B. Longest. And Longest moved from the policy formulation stage, which Kingdon had, to policy implementation and a policy mod with a feedback loop, so that if you have a policy that allows for modification over time, and this would have been the case in Virginia, then that comes closer to achieving a policy goal because it can be changed. So those 2 sort of people are who are really guiding the work that I'm doing. So post in Virginia and post in the country are important because they stand on the back of a physician's order, and so it had teeth versus just a document that maybe people couldn't even find. Early states that adopted post also called it MOST, and they were the states of New York, West Virginia, Washington, and Pennsylvania, and it is West Virginia that we in Virginia work the closest to. And so that's sort of the way that developed. There have been studies to develop it. You may know people who have been involved in it. Anyway, in Southwest Virginia, in about the 2000s, there was a wonderful physician named Chris Pyle. I talked to him once. He was a hospice and palliative care person. He came to work in Roanoke. He was in Wytheville and noticed and went to a conference in West Virginia and noticed that this was really something that needed to be done, that the post model really needed to occur. And he was one of the ones with a nurse, Laura Pohl, who tried to help implement that in Virginia. And they did that with a set of policy streams and pilot grants that they did throughout Virginia. They had to change some law. They finally got that implemented, and it is in Virginia in many places, but not, the uptake is spotty, and it particularly has not seemed to take hold here where I am at Virginia Tech with a medical school that is fairly new in Roanoke. And so this seems to me to present a really wonderful opportunity. So the parent organization, which frankly doesn't get much funding to do this job, but they're just doing it anyway because they care, is called Capital Caring. Its physicians provide palliative care leadership at the largest metropolitan center in the metropolitan DC area, largest medical center in the metropolitan DC area, including all the hospitals in the Inova Health System, Georgetown University Medical Center, Washington Hospital Center, Virginia Hospital Center, and Walter Reed. So this is who houses at the moment the Virginia Post Collaborative, and they have an executive committee, and they meet about once a month, I think, maybe if not more frequently, but definitely to that. So enter the way I'm going to try to help work on this project and problem, and that would be to try to understand the rural culture. I feel like I have a good feel for that because I live within it and am a product of it, and it doesn't mean I know it perfectly, but to understand the culture here and why there has been not the uptake that it might have been in other areas, to try to understand the health disparities and the concerns and issues, and lack of a strong medical center, I think, is one of the issues as well. So what we want to do is try to figure that out and then create a blueprint, if I can, for a way to implement it. And it's turned out that that's going to be more than just Southwest Virginia, but that is probably not the point of this whole flash presentation. Anyway, what I will be doing is a thing called an environmental scan. This takes documents, it's interviews, it's a survey. I'll be doing this environmental scan to try to understand how we can better have this uptake of post in the rural area, and then targeted interviews that I'll be doing with people who are willing to talk about what they see as ways to move forward. That's what I'm doing. Actually, that survey, which will be via Qualtrics, is going out tomorrow. Long story about having to go through 2 IRBs, but I just popped through the other one just late this morning, and am now ready with the 2 universities having approved my study design to press on. Capital Caring, or the Post Collaborative, voted that they would send the survey out versus me. I think it'll give it more heft. My project to finish my degree is due to be completed and perfectly lovely in May. I'm due for a rough draft at the end of March, so you can see I got my work cut out for me. I'll probably still have to be working on it in April, but I think I can make get the whole thing done to them by mid-April, late May at the last. This is the last time you've got to do anything with it date. So that's why you see results at a future date, because they're not in. And discussion and conclusions, although I could tell you a number of things I think I can already suss out as some of the reasons. All right, so I'm going to the last slide, which will be this is the last slide, and frankly, all we were allowed to do was just to put the bibliography down. Some people make that so tiny nobody could read it, but I thought we could only have a certain font. So I picked what I thought were the most important articles that anybody could have on the PowerPoint slide. So this is who you see. Some of the movers and shakers with it, of course, have been Pat Bomba, who's a colleague in New York and was sort of the policy entrepreneur who has been the person working on Post, and then Susan Hickman has been one of the key people in the West Coast to work on this issue. So you can just begin to see some of the ways that I'm going to start looking at this but there is a very little bit of the select bibliography because that's all the room I thought I had. Anyway, this is my example of what a flash presentation might look like. We would definitely have things more on point for Alzheimer's disease and related diseases, but this is exactly what I have been doing recently, and I thought the easiest for me to do. So there you go. I hope this goes well. I hope you weren't too bored. I hope I didn't go too fast, but that is the end of my flash presentation. Thanks. Bye. Just reporting the survey did go out as planned, and I already have over 60 respondents and 20 people who will interview. It's pretty cool for a week.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
We'll see.
That's great.
So what I thought might be helpful is certainly there are lots of challenges with doing something like this, right? We can think of a list that probably come to mind: formatting, people having access to different types of recording, all kinds of things that might make it challenging to provide these types of flash presentations. We've also talked about where would they be housed, how would they be maintained, and all of that. So if we would have to work through the logistics of doing something like this if we wanted to continue to pursue it, but I thought I'd open it up to initial impressions, maybe from an idealistic point of view, and then certainly we'd have to talk about really the hard line challenges that we might have with something like this. Any thoughts?
I liked both formats, actually. I think the second format is more conducive to a bunch of information, it was sort of like a deep dive. And the format you did, I think, is really powerful because sort of short attention span. It's a one pager, so you could probably do it on your phone. And you can even make the one pager downloadable, which I think having resources that can be downloaded, because you never know. I mean, it could be that someone wants to print it off for someone that they're taking care of, or a neighbor or something like that. So I like the idea of having something that is easily printed out.
You could also even think about it as a staged approach if audio or video files are hard to maintain or take up too much data, or we don't have the platform. We could even just go with an image of posting people's flyers versus, and George and I would talk about this in a second, because we do have an opportunity with creating a platform that, so we'd have to think about how it could work. But certainly I love your idea about just, if it is a flyer or a one pager, they could print it out and it would already be approved by an IRB, because that would be a flyer that they would be using in their study, could be handed out and shared widely. Or in some cases, providers can do that too. Look through for their patients and see what potential studies may be going across the Commonwealth and print them out. Yeah, because George and I were talking, it sounds like a VNI is not functioning anymore. So there really is a pretty significant gap. They were working really hard. The Virginia George, do you remember their full title? I remember their acronym.
Yeah, Virginia Neuroscience Initiative.
Neuroscience Initiative. So we've mentioned them before, how anybody actually participated in it, but the goal of that was to create a platform for providers and researchers and to share data, but they're now essentially not functioning. So there's a pretty big gap for this.
I was part of that, and it was hard to get any traction with it, honestly.
Was it?
Yeah.
Now, George and I presented, and I attended a few meetings, but you're right, it was hard to get a sense of how they're going to maintain it.
Carol, you were running the Alzheimer's interest group, right?
Yes.
And when you say it was hard to get traction, was it that people weren't attending, or was it difficult to share information?
There was sporadic attendance, and then it wasn't clear kind of what the goal was to make, it was hard, what were we doing? Were we trying to get collaborations? People did really disparate stuff. And so it was hard to get people to routinely commit because it wasn't clear why we were doing it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So it sounds like we have a pretty clear objective, which is to share research with the public and with other researchers, incidentally, but in order to drive participation in research. So that would be the overarching goal. I think, would everybody agree with that?
Yeah, this feels really different. We have a clear goal and we're just figuring out the best ways to do it.
Yeah. And I think the commitment would be much less than it would than those regular calls for the NI.
So next, George and I'd like to talk about an opportunity we have to create a platform that might be a gateway to maybe something bigger, or it could be a potential adjunct to something. George, do you want to start, or do you want me to lead the discussion about VCU engineering? You can interject.
No, I'm happy.
We were both there. So I think I mentioned, maybe it was at our last commission meeting, when I saw the provider work group present about this flyer that they were making. And I had discussed with a group that I had worked with a colleague of mine who works at the VCU engineering. Engineering sits really close with computer science. They work very closely together on the work that they do. And they run this program called a capstone project, and they can actually create things they call legacy projects, where if they have a project in which they're working with a nonprofit or even sometimes a for-profit, they basically can fund the project for a period of time for students to be involved with the nonprofit to create something. I've been involved with them before because they're really great. They send the students out to meet often on site with people. They have to do a really in-depth needs assessment about what it is that they want to build. They have to then create it, bring it back as an iterative process. So they're continuing to build that process. And so we spoke to my colleague, Thea Pepperell, Dr. Thea Pepperell, about this and whether or not our project, the idea of what we were trying to do in the provider work group, which was creating this flyer, but also what we were doing in the research group, might be a potential project that this group could help us carry forward. Creating an app that would allow providers and patients and their caregivers to link through and access not only information, but potentially link out to what we're creating here with access to research. And often on the back end of that, they could track data, right? And they can put in data points. So how many people, touched the website, potentially how many people downloaded something, XYZ. And so Dr. Pepperell thought very feasible, very reasonable, was pretty excited about the process. We told her we would have to present it here, but also out to the bigger commission group before we went forward with a project. There's a pretty simple one-page form in which we fill out about the project. It could be one or two. We could make one app that's specific to providers and one that's specific to our work group, that might be research, or we make it simple and we have one full provider group that also links out to available research, clinical trials across the Commonwealth, right, that people could get involved in. And she said that could link out to a website that has the presentations that we were talking about, or it depends on what we end up creating, how it would link or where it would sit in the app. So that's an option for us. George, did I miss anything? Or any points you want to?
Yeah, so the initial jumping off point was the caregiving app that you and Dr. Pepperell had started developing. And so my thought would be that not only could we include that, but we could also include information about the commission, such as the state plan and the annual report. Just some basic information about the commission, and then the various offerings that we already have or that we're preparing for consumers, and then the providers bucket as well, and then linking that with the researchers so that it all fits together. They may have, I'm sure the students will have lots of ideas, but it would seem like having one app that covers it all would be a great way to go.
And there were two things that we put to her is, just, the sustainability of it. We don't want to start a project and then not have funding for it, not be able to sustain it, not have it be usable. And that was her idea, was to create it as a legacy project, is what she had called it. That they have other projects in which the students just consistently work with a for-profit or nonprofit organization to continue the project, sort of moving forward every year, develops or changes in some way. And when she said that, it seemed like a very feasible option. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? I certainly would put it in the hands of individuals as a mobile, app. Be sort of what Margie was saying is, I think we were all talking about the commission meeting, having some marketing, right? Standard marketing view where we'd say the Alzheimer's Commission, getting that information out there to providers where it's accessible across the Commonwealth. Most people are using iPhones at this point, or not iPhones, but mobile devices, right, in which they can access this information. We could consider also the next jump being a website, but that's a much bigger step. It requires funding and sort of a process which we could still set as a long-term goal, but this may help us get to this step maybe a little quicker in a different format.
I definitely,
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
No, you go, Laura.
I was just going to say, I definitely love the idea of making sure that it is mobile friendly, just because I know a lot of people that don't have access to Wi-Fi or underserved communities typically have access to phones. So I think that's more important than even having a website. And I like the idea of making it sort of that legacy project that you were talking, because I think really it's about, 10 years from now, we still want something like this to exist. We don't want it just to become this static thing that no longer exists in a few years.
Right. And from my understanding, just from working with her on projects before, and the coding of the app, they can create things that have start dates so that it does become pretty easy, to maintain, such as if a project's put up there or a link or something, it can be a defined period of time. Things like that. Margie probably has some experience with that too, but it could be a good stepping stone for us, if not something that we continue to maintain. So I think our idea was to bring it forward to the commission, because it could potentially involve 2 work groups moving things forward, and 3 potentially. Okay, yeah, that would, so 3 potential work groups, so just we need to get some approval and some feedback. And
yeah, I think this would be a really super platform for the Dementia Capable Virginia broad initiative that various work groups of the commission are all working on. So it's a kind of showcase app for us, but also a very practical app that people can use to get information about their caregiving, or how to find providers, or how providers can learn about how better to serve their consumers. And so, yeah, I think this would be a really great way forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think bringing it up at the commission meeting is important so that other work groups know about it, because I think it's really applicable even to sort of the state plan that we're working on.
Laura, how do you see the state plan linking in with it?
I'm thinking specifically to the Washington state plan that we're adapting to Virginia. I just think that there are little chunks of information that we could kind of, not all in one video, obviously, but different phases and different information that we could maybe make into a one pager or have a few minute training kind of session on.
Yeah, the roadmap, you mean, not the state plan. Yeah, but also, I mean, it does, each of these projects and aspects of them fit into certain areas of the state plan. So this could be a way of having some sort of accountability for us driving the state plan forward.
Yeah.
What was it? Maybe.
Because I think, you know, currently the state plan it's overwhelming for, I think, a constituent to just read on its surface. But anyway, we can tie that information back to information that's applicable to an individual or a family or a caregiver. I think it's important.
So Lana, what I would suggest is that as part of your work group report at the commission, that you include this discussion about the capstone project. I think that would be a good place for it. Does that sound okay, Laura?
Yeah, I think so. Sounds great.
All right, sounds good. And then we could certainly think about if that's going to be the platform, how what Pamela and I did today, how that, or what format of that, at least for one little step, moves forward. It may not be the video or the big flash, but maybe something. And certainly, I think our primary goal is to keep it somewhat innovative and simplistic so that it does become accessible, maybe different than a search engine type function, which can be really complicated. I don't know, how about you guys? When you get to a search engine, you don't know exactly what you're searching. You wonder sometimes if you're pulling up the right things. So, but we can talk about that as it moves forward. If it does move forward, then we have this opportunity to create something.
Another mechanism just to make things interesting. I believe that since a year ago, we have gotten less patient with things that take long, you know, on screens. I just think that we, you know, I was telling a person today that I think we've gone from the 3.5 hour Shakespearean play to the 1.5 hour, you know, show that audiences will tolerate. And now, you know, I even think 5 minutes gets will be a long time for my tiny little brain sometimes to, you know, want to endure. So one of the things that we did, this was to promote something for our center. We used the iMovie format. Your kids could do this. You can do this. And it's a minute. But I'm just saying, you could take much shorter, Lana, what you did, and certainly what I did, and not give the full Monty, but just a piece of it, a snippet. And then they could go to more of that strategically. But the iMovie thing really, like, it was a whole minute, but it garnered us a bunch of students and faculty who go, can I use that to recruit? And I thought, sure you can. And it's on your phone. So, but I think if you were trying to recruit people for a research project, for example, that would be so dynamic because it's a minute, and it just gets you. All you want is a flavor. You don't want everything, right? You don't need it there because that's going to be done later. So that 1 minute packed and interesting is even better, and another way to get information out that grabs somebody's attention and nets some good results.
Especially if you're going to get a provider in a busy schedule to search through something for their patient, you've got to it's got to be really simple for them to be able to connect their.
The other thing is, I think we've become more savvy consumers of this stuff, right? Since we were last March, you know, so what grabbed you back in March of 2020, if you can recall that, might not in March of 2021. because you've gotten slicker about it.
I loved all those ideas. I think that's I think Pam is so right that attention span has shortened, and so from what you all have mentioned so far, I think that having one page with a little bit of less than a minute or less of audio, and you could download that page that would have a QR code on it, so you could automatically go to whatever link the researcher or provider provided, and just make it as seamless as possible and as easy to use as possible. But it's certainly, viewing both Lana and Pam's presentations, I think the way to go is short and really to the point, and having something that people could download from that presentation to save on their phone would be super. So
I think that, I'll just use my own for an example. That was clearly, it was a class project, but probably all of you have gotten really exhausted with PowerPoint presentations and the person in the tiny box, like, woo, please quit doing that, because we are just worn out with it. So I think we need to think of things that are, I'm not saying that the commercial industry, we need to move into that way. And I'm also not advocating that we quit reading totally. I had to move because my daughter was not going to have a class this afternoon. But I think that we do need to up our game some, because the world is up its game. And, if you would like to, talk about research projects, I would go back to what Laura said, and like, the kids are doing it all the time. It's what you want to watch on your phone. What do you want to watch over? And I would, because they are doing that. They are watching TikTok, and they are watching, YouTube, and they can tell you what they're watching, and they're watching it more than once. Wouldn't you love to have them watch your recruitment message twice? Wow. But I think that's what you aspire to, because that's the vibe of it. I am so far out of that I can't stand it, but I can tell you that, well, and George, something else, come to think of it, like when I'm looking on my phone for something, what's popping up is my daughter's anime. All that stuff is showing, because if you start it, it starts populating what the searches have been recently. Well, shoot, if we could figure out a way to do that, you go back to your study, Lan, or yours, Carol, and they go, oh yeah, that study, I remember that. Click on it again. So that technology exists. They sure know what dress I look for. You forgot to get that in your cart. So I mean, why can't we do that? Because that's what is happening in the world. We should piggyback on it. I'm done. What is left in my cart is this real cute sweater.
We can talk to the engineering students about building some AI in there to track our digital footprints, right? Our participant, anybody who logs in. But these are great ideas, and I think if we decide this is a platform, then we'll have this opportunity to brainstorm too with people who do this type of coding and building of work eventually too, to think about what our opportunities are, and especially if we build it as a legacy, it could be something that we start small with, right? And then it becomes, like you said, Pam, something maybe that becomes more savvy and smart with its artificial intelligence built in behind it afterwards. So yeah, it could, again, I think I agree with Laura. I think our primary goal is to create something that lasts beyond us, something that's simple, manageable, but stays around, lasts beyond us. That way, yeah, we don't, we leave something behind that could really be developed on, hopefully.
And I see this as like a potential of having it combined with a Dementia Capable Virginia podcast that could have, short conversations with particular researchers or with research participants to just, 5 to 10 minute short episodes that focus on a particular area of research or a type of research or a particular community of potential participants, something like that, but maybe separate from the actual presentations of the available research. It would be something separate but linked.
I think what people aspire to is seeing that something made an impact somehow instead of our obligatory more research must be done, and I think that another thing that we might think of down the road would be to highlight the impacts of some of the really great Virginia research. What happened? And that's what makes people want to do it, other than their very goodwill. If you did a little section on 2 impacts, like Lana, you could do, or Carol, you could do, about what are 2 impacts that came of your work? This study did this. Now we're going to go to this. Don't you want to be part of this? Or here, we found what are the top, what's the top shelf finding that you had, right? And then that's digestible for everybody. That's digestible for a lot of people. And it's also very inspiring that something more comprehensible resulted than you got it published in JAMA, right? Which is not accessible to most people. I mean, we think we're interesting because that's what we do. But I can tell you outside this door, my husband's like, oh my God, but it's relative, right? He was a criminal attorney. Are you kidding? They make movies out of that stuff all the time. So I'm just saying, we've got to be smarter and say, what are ways that can connect with the public in Virginia? They know Alzheimer's exists. They know there's a walk. They don't know what the walk does probably, but raise money, but distinguish that, and then Lana, what's the most amazing thing you're doing? Make that very digestible for people, and it's inspiring to them. I think that's sort of the way that we, I would say the 2 impacts, the impacts of the studies would be really huge.
It's
Like the idea, right? So go ahead, Margie. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is the world we live in, and we really are salespeople for what we're trying to do right now. Sales, marketing, and it is a collection maybe of commercials all under one umbrella. But I think that's the way we got to look at it is, and if we don't get their attention to begin with, it just won't matter. So we kind of got to look at it as marketing pieces. And this 64-year-old watches TikTok all the time.
Me too.
Maybe we should put that on the agenda. Present your research in a TikTok. These are the ideas, honestly, that we need. The standard ideas are not connecting people anymore. We're not connecting with the population we need to, and we need to connect with our caregivers who are searching, or providers that are searching, right? And like you said, in a way where they're going to watch it potentially over and over again. Think about those videos the ER docs put out when they do a rap video, and how many times those get watched, right? Something that's right we've been talking about. But yeah, sure. I think all is within reach, right? If we can get the right platform.
And it doesn't have to be totally slick either.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
TikTok's not very yeah, it's a pretty basic, platform.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so great. It's so ingenious. It's simple, and people can access it. And yeah, absolutely. I was thinking, Pam looks like we're missing Pam. But I was thinking when Pam was talking about something that Fonda had mentioned was Fonda, when she had joined us, just about that same, and one of our goals is to connect back with the community. So not only just do the research and leave, really the goal is to not only connect people with research, but give them results. Often they're participants in work, but because of the way the research is designed, they don't get any information necessarily back, right? And so I love that the impact, and maybe that's something we can do that's different than the NIA website. that's up there. We have impact statements, and maybe we even require a section of anybody who posts on there to give us some example of an impact of their work. And I remember Fonda was even saying when her mother was diagnosed and she became her primary caregiver, she was looking for research and couldn't find platforms, easily accessible platforms. She was like looking across the university really for anybody who was doing research that she could get her mom involved in. So I think her story sort of tells a good example of what people like herself in the early phases are looking for, you know, something they can identify with that might help a loved one. And then just some connection back to the community of what they did by participating in this work or by connecting with us. You know, what were they able to, so I love the impact, the idea of the impact. Even if it's told through, I think we talked about being told through someone who's participated in one of the projects even, that was up there that they connected with. That's even more powerful, right?
So I'm just going to suggest some steps forward, if that's all right, because it sounds like everyone's really enthusiastic about this idea. So one idea is that this work group could kind of lead that capstone project. It's a little bit away from the data and research, but we have Carol's group now working on the Berthas data write-up. And so maybe that becomes a separate data work group going forward. And this is really focused on bringing researchers into this app project. What do we think about that?
I think we should continue to think about what data we think we want to collect or can collect from this. That's going to be important for this group.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't mean to exclude data completely, but in terms of but that would be data that surrounds this project specifically rather than data more generally. But we would need a particular group tasked with this project. I think it's a fairly big thing to chew on. Laura, do you have any thoughts about that? I suspect this will be something that the commission as a whole jumps on. I would hope so anyway.
Yeah,
I think it's a great opportunity.
I think so. I think that's something that the work group can take on, and we can still continue to talk about the data aspects. But I think nailing down how we even want to display the data is going to be so important.
Well, we can certainly pitch it to the full group, and even consider how this may help other work groups move their thing forward, and then suggest that we take the lead. Since they're developing still content potentially for that, we could take the lead on the process and connection of creating the capstone, and maybe even starting the process and bringing information out to the larger group as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That sounds like a great
Lana,
next step.
do you remember the timeline for that?
They start in the fall.
Yeah.
So if we got
the deadline.
I think she said we could submit it really anytime. If we did it in the summer, that would be good. So she could kind of start to align faculty who would be, and funding potentially for the project, for the group. I can't remember if there was a deadline on the sheet that she gave you.
No.
Okay.
There's not.
Maybe in her email. We can find out certainly before.
So my thought would be I'll go ahead and start, depending on how the March 9th meeting turns out. So if we get the go ahead from the commission, I'll start working on a draft of the proposal on that form, and we can refine that in our next work group meeting. So, I mean, it would be good to at least run it past Dr. Pepperell sometime after we've done that before the June commission meeting, if we have that much time.
Yeah, she didn't give a specific date, but I think if we could have there's a template that we have to fill out. So if we could have that template filled out and ready to present at the commission meeting, Laura, I don't know if that would be okay, but even if it's just a draft of what we talked about today as the goals with the other work groups involved, or at least some of the just filling out. They primarily need the form filled out so they can allocate resources and think about what hardware, and that's how the form is sort of crafted. Talking to her, she already believes the project conceptually is a good fit, right, for the capstone. So it's more about the logistics of what they need and how they can prepare. So if we can get that form filled out and approved by the commission, and we do that at our next meeting, then I think we'll be ahead, because then we could just work with Dr. Pepperell to kind of get our application in and work through the logistics. I don't see a date on here, but I could find out, George, what's her hard stop. I'm pretty sure it's just before the fall semester.
Great.
Okay. That sounds right. I would have written it down somewhere, and then of course can't find it. So and it's not on the form. But I think you're right. I think she was talking about later.
Yeah, it's fall. So we had a lot of time. We had enough time for the span of in between our meetings to probably make her deadline.
Yeah. I think August was kind of a hard stop.
Yeah.
But yes, and one of the benefits of this is that they do have funding within the university to pay for the stuff that we don't have the funding for. So on the form, they mentioned things like 3D printers and things, which they would supply. So yeah, so that's a good thing. And just speaking of funding, I'll just throw in, so the BOLD Act, we've kind of got started again, and we're currently discussing year 2 projects. So I will talk to we're going to have a meeting again either this week or next week with the health department. So I will put this forward as something that we may want to think about including brain health information on this app, and that would be a really, I think, innovative way to build on the other efforts of the BOLD Act to drive that forward, and that we would hopefully be able to get some funding from that to support this as well.
I think that would be great, because it could certainly help this project, but potentially also help it move forward to if we wanted a website platform or something to that effect too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So George, do you want to try to work on the form and then send it to me, and I'm happy to help before the next meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So
we can share it with you, Laura.
That'd be great.
Yeah. If we have an outline of that for March 9th, I'll start working on that today and get that to you in the next day or two, Lana. All right. Sounds like a plan.
It's exciting.
Great. Well, is there any other announcements or comments? Otherwise, we could adjourn the meeting.
All right. Well, let me know if you need anything from me, and I look forward to talking about this next week.
Great.
George, do you think it'd be helpful to send it to the group before it goes? Just, we can email it to you without any expectation to send anything back, but just if you have comments. I'm thinking of looking at Margie's expertise in marketing, and and so I just maybe just have a look at it before. I know it's a tight timeline, but if you just look at our outline, if you've got any comments, and send something back. But otherwise, it's not, you're not committed to sending any email back, but just to get it out to the group. What do you think, George?
I think that's
Okay.
a good idea.
All right. Welcome back, Carol. You're just getting ready to wrap up. Quick summary. We just decided we're gonna
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. We just decided we're gonna do an outline on the capstone design proposal, and we'll send it out to the group before the next meeting, but there's no obligation to respond. If you look at it and you see something you feel like needs to be adjusted, then send it back to us and we'll add it to it, but we're going to present it at the next commission meeting as an item to move forward on. And there was discussion that this group would probably lead that charge for the rest of the commission, and the other work groups will lead that effort of creating this and even thinking about kind of what data we want to collect from it and all that.
Right, and then I've got in mind that by March 17th, we have to have the website comments, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
19th.
Oh, 19th? Oh, I just got myself 2 days. Okay, thank you.
Homework.
Yeah. It's alzheimers.gov. I'll send that out. Pretty easy to remember.
Great. All right. Well, I think we
Thank
can
you.
adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Very efficient.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye, George.